1944 was the Tigris and Euphrates of film noir, a year that positively teemed with classic exemplars of the genre. You all know I can bandy hyperbole with the best of them, but I think the fact that simply rattling off a list of movies that came out that year could easily double as a top 10 list of the greatest films in the genre speaks volumes. Murder, My Sweet, Ministry of Fear, Laura, and the mysterious, the stylish, complete inversion of the genre before it had even begun, Phantom Lady.
You know, being shut up alone so much, I've been thinking. Maybe there never was such a woman. It's just my word against theirs. Maybe I just imagined it. Maybe she doesn't exist.
Stop talking like that. You can't work for a man as long as I work for you and not know him pretty well. You couldn't kill anybody.
Thanks, Kansas. That makes you a minority of one.
Product of former Hitchcock collaborator Joan Harrison, Phantom Lady is a first on all fronts. First film noir produced by abroad, first film noir starring abroad, debatably the first proper film noir at Universal Studios, and undebatably the very first Hollywood film noir for the apex artist in the field, director Robert Siodmak. But it came straight from the source material, a pulp novel published in Detective Fiction magazine in 1942 entitled Phantom Alibi, later to be retitled Phantom Lady, to be the debut novella of an unknown penman by the name of William Irish. If that name sounds faker than gas station salami, that's because it is. For William Irish was the recently adopted sobriquet of prolific pulp author Cornell Woolrich, today among the most respected crime writers of this or any other generation.
He was so prolific, he had the nom de plumes of George Hopley and William Irish. And he got the William Irish thing because he signed an exclusive contract with Simon & Schuster in 1940 for The Bride Wore Black. And so Simon & Schuster, part of that contract was they had the Cornell Woolrich name. So he was working with a fellow who was adapting some of his stories for a magazine, and he said, we need to come up with another name or I'm going to get sued. And so he went through and he came up with Irish, and the guy says, that's good, William Irish. And he used that for Lippincott to publish Phantom Lady.
As troubled as he was productive, today creative writing professors prefer to occupy themselves with his bisexual asides and omnipresent mental problems. But to actual movie and crime fiction fans, Cornell Woolrich will forever be known as the man Alfred Hitchcock flagrantly ripped off to make Rear Window. And it's at the literary level that we see the inversion of formula went far beyond a female producer and protagonist, where many movies in noir tend to spotlight a hapless hero ensnared by a Spider-Woman such as The Postman Always Rings Twice or Double Indemnity. Here, a comparatively innocent indiscretion entraps our protagonist, who despite being bludgeoned with the blunt end of a murder rap, is otherwise implicitly moral.
I don't know what to say.
Skip it, Kansas. I'll be all right now that I know where I stand. Yes, I'll be fine. Last night, for the first time, I didn't have to count sheep. I slept like a guilty man.
But you're going to appeal.
With what? An old set of blueprints and my grandfather's watch?
It's a question of money.
Oh, Kansas. No thanks. It isn't the money. We've done everything. Hired a flock of detectives, bought time on the radio, advertised in the newspapers. Everything possible was done to find her.
But what about your friends? Won't they help?
Oh, yes. Remember all my friends? Well, they aren't.
Author Cornell Woolrich, who wrote the pulp novel upon which Phantom Lady is based, is notable among noir scribes for his implacable inclination toward placing protagonists of both genders in mortal peril, after which a seeming side character militates into action as the agent of their increasingly improbable deliverance. In the novel, this is underlined thickly by opening up with the words, "The 150th day before the execution, 6 p.m." If you can conceive a more eye-grabbing hook to inaugurate a pulp crime novel, buddy, pick up a pen and a publisher because you are in the wrong business. But while the plot of The Pulp to Follow is more or less in line with the film adaptation, 1944's Phantom Lady is impressive for the delicate, expert touch with which its changes were handled, most of which can probably be plunked at the penny loafers of a little thing called the Hays Code. If you're unfamiliar with it, ask a Turner Classic Movies host or your film professor, both of whom will doubtless be boner-stricken at the prospect of propagandizing you with lurid tales of censorship ascendant and government decency panels. In actuality, the Hays Code was a self-policing conception intended to tug back the reins after early 30s pre-code crime pictures got a bit too bloody, boob-bedecked, and at times overt in their communistic sympathies for paw and maw middle America.
I'm too important these days to sleep informally. What if there'd be a fire? You'd have to cover up to keep from being recognized.
It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Where do you want me to go? Listen, you chief stenographer.
Outside, Countess. As long as they have sidewalks, you've got a job.
But however you incline toward internecine cinematic censorship, where film noir was concerned, the policy had a decided advantage. In lieu of outright depicting naked dames, drugs, or dongs, it was instead implied, and often as not, in a manner that trusted the audience to fill in the libidinous blanks.
I thought you came because you couldn't stay away from me any longer.
Don't let that face of yours go to your head.
Or to yours?
Wouldn't matter if it did. People who use pretty faces like you use yours don't live very long anyway.
How do you think I should use my face, Jojo?
You're rolling your own dice, kid.
Maybe. I'd like to roll for both of us.
Speaking of horses, I like to play them myself. But I like to see them work out a little first. See if they're front runners or come from behind. Find out what their whole card is. What makes them run.
Find out mine?
I think so.
Go ahead.
I'd say you don't like to be rated. You like to get out in front. Open up a lead, take a little breather in the back stretch, and come home free.
Far from ratifying historians' ever more tremulous assertions that it stifled creativity, many film noir appreciated inequality considerably as a result of the Hays Code, with Phantom Lady foremost among them, particularly as it pertains to items 9 and 10 on the Hays Code do's and don'ts list. The sanctity of marriage and the home must be upheld, and adultery and illicit sex cannot be explicit or justified. In the Woolrich novel, Scott and his secretary Carol, Kansas, are already having an extramarital affair prior to the killing of his wife, utterly annihilating any romantic tension between the two, not to mention making both her boss and Carol decidedly unsympathetic. In lieu of the near-vigilante status conferred on Carol by the filmmakers, the pulp novel instead reads like a romantic revenge story, more morally ambiguous by far, but narratively desultory. By excising the needless adultery angle, we not only provide a pinch of pathos for Scott Henderson, but the viewer is given all the more reason to root for Carol, not only in her quest to clear the man she secretly loves, but in so doing, to realize her unrequited affection for Sam.
As a matter of fact, I'm always darn glad to see you. You oughtn't to waste your time coming up here. You ought to be out having fun with some fella. Don't tell me you're not in love, Kansas. Well, for Pete's sake, I hit the nail right on the head. Who is he?
My boss?
Your boss? Well, that was quick. I didn't even know you had another job. So you've fallen for each other, huh? Gosh, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
What emerges is an amalgam of what I called in the Out of the Past video the pure as the driven snow other girl and the iconic femme fatale. The woman Scott affectionately calls Kansas is essentially a morally upright ingenue who, to achieve justice for her beloved boss, employs the weapons and intrigues of the femme fatale, making Ella Raines' character Carol among the most unique, categorization-defying performances in all of film noir. As described in the pulp novel, the resultant stalking sequence is brilliance to begin with and makes for a monumentally memorable segment of the movie. Quote, "It was a terrible weapon she had found and she was using. It does not ordinarily occur to people how utterly unbearable it can be to be looked at steadily over a protracted period of time, say an hour or 2 or 3, simply because it is a thing that never happens to them. Their fortitude is not put to the test. To him, she was no longer a girl, something he could have buffeted senseless with one arm if he chose. To him, she was Nemesis.
I ain't talking, see? You ain't got nothing on me. Nothing. If you want to find out anything, ask the guy who gave it to me.
Who bribed you?
Wait a minute. Let me go. Take your hands off me. Look out!
Even in an intense, lengthy sequence in a jazz and drug den, incredible care is taken by director Robert Siodmak to imply the presence of weed, coke, and smack, the use of the first of these being described vividly in the pulp story without the film once actually depicting it. Though not even slightly subtle is the sexual innuendo you could cut with a melon scoop. As for the illicit drug use, that comes through creatively as well, whether through the omnipresence of whiskey and beer bottles that sure seem to be piled around something else on the table there, or through incidental, almost throwaway splashes of dialogue.
You just gonna stand there? What are you looking at? It's just a room.
Gee, Cliff. With all the dough you make?
My dough goes on other things, baby.
It gets the point across ably, but it also forces the viewer to remain vigilant to subtext, making habitués of film noir almost active participants rather than passive viewers. And for all the anti-Hays Code bleeding and bloviating from Eddie Muller and the rest of the Turner classic Intern, without said insinuation lending an air of timelessness to what in the 40s was regarded as little more than cinematic slop, you unicycle-riding, bowling pin juggling clowns wouldn't have a network to ruin.
Well, I thought it was noir because some of the films were so bad, you know, because that's all they could have been called is noir.
In truth, Phantom Lady owes almost as much to another Cornell Woolrich pulp yarn, The Black Angel, as it does to its namesake. That novel features a singular female protagonist. In the Phantom Lady novel, Carol is only half a protagonist, splitting chapters in her quest to clear her boss between herself and a male co-main character, Scott's best friend, Jack Lombard, who flies in from South America to aid in the effort. In the film, he's instead dubbed Jack Marlowe, though the character and the plot conceit that necessitates his inclusion remains nearly identical. Marlowe and his motivations are transmogrified considerably from the source material. In lieu of a lover's spat-turned-homicide sending the character into a cover-up killing spree, Marlowe's motives are more psychological and compulsive. Marlowe doesn't simply kill to conceal his original crime. He kills to assuage the torturous need to unmake man and remake it with a sculptor's hands.
What are you thinking about?
Oh, how interesting a pair of hands can be. They can trick melody out of a piano keyboard. They can mold beauty out of a piece of common clay. They can bring life back to a dying child. Yeah. A pair of hands can do inconceivable good. Yet the same pair of hands can do terrible evil. They can destroy, whip, torture, even kill. I'm fond of Scott. We're friends. But what's his life compared to mine? A mediocre engineer working in sewers, drain pipes, faucets. What's any life compared to mine?
Siodmak's direction absolutely soars in sequences such as this. And while Phantom Lady is far from the best Woolrich novel, nor his most faithful adaptation, perhaps no single sequence more affectionately festoons this nebulous notion of noir nighttime across the screen as those featured in the first half of this film, as the barman, driven senseless by the unshakable phantom female, Kansas, finds himself at a train station with an ideal opportunity to end the threat once and for always, and so he and the audience hold their breath for a single moment pregnant with Hitchcockian suspense. The streets sweat steam, the skyscrapers loom in mute malevolence. Phantom Lady is celluloid artwork yet to be equaled in a genre known for stunning cinemascapes. Legendary noir cinematographer John Alton called it painting with light, and if you want to see a moving Michelangelo, then drink in Woody Bredell's unparalleled lighting in Phantom Lady.
You wrote a book in about 1950 called Painting with Light.
Yes.
What was the purpose of that book?
The purpose was indirectly to show the world what a fight it was to get quality into pictures. It does. If you read the book carefully, you'll feel my feelings, you know, that it was a struggle to get quality in pictures.
The important thing was to try to save as much, for those of us who cared anyway and wanted to get the hell out of them, to spend as much time with the actors as possible and as little time lighting the set and spending times on the mechanics of making the film. And one way to do that, film noir lighting, if you will recognize it, requires very little lighting.
Hello, Mr. Henderson. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. I've gained weight. They're fattening me up for the slaughter. Got a date in 18 days.
What's your appeal?
It's denied. Oh, stop feeling sorry for me. Guess I'm not very sociable these days, but you happen to be the only one that comes up here to see me.
You needn't apologize, Mr. Henderson. I understand.
I got away from all the big lighting and a lot of machines, and I just used the most necessary quantity of light that I needed to establish. Sometimes only one reflector, you know what I mean? And some of the unions objected to it because a lot of people lost a lot of jobs, you know what I mean? Because I only used one electrician instead of 16. So those were problems.
Ich will die Leute nicht erziehen, sondern ich will die Leute unterhalten. Und das ist wirklich das Ausschlaggebende bei dieser ganzen Geschichte. Es freut mich, verstehen Sie, irgendeine Sache zu machen, wo man etwas anklagen kann, wo man in eine Geschichte etwas hineinbeziehen kann, was den Leuten und dem Zuschauer etwas zu denken gibt. Aber das ist nicht meine Aufgabe und das ist nicht meine Absicht gewesen.
Siodmak's sense of psychology is at its most arresting in sequences such as the apartment interrogation of Scott Henderson, where a coterie of cops grill an innocent man about a murder victim he only slowly realizes is his own wife. The camera sits at an informal remove at first, impersonal, remote, inscrutable. Yet as Scott learns of his wife's fate, slowly but surely, the camera tightens, as if imitating the frame he now finds himself ensnared in.
Thanks. Where were you around 8 o'clock tonight? In a bar? Alone? No, I met a woman there. I wasn't in the mood to be by myself. So I asked her to go to a show with me. Who was she? I don't know. She didn't tell me her name. Well, she didn't. Besides, what's that got to do with it?
You're a very neat dresser, Mr. Henderson.
Yes, everything goes together. It's an art.
It's a nice tie you're wearing.
Tie?
Pretty taste. Expensive. I wish I could afford it.
Say, what are you trying to do to me? Marcella's dead. Give me a break. What's the difference whether my tie's okay or not?
Makes a great deal of difference, Mr. Henderson.
Why?
Your wife was strangled with one of your ties.
Yeah. Knotted so tight, it had to be cut loose with a knife.
By the time Scott realizes he's set to star in his own murder mystery, the image of his mocking wife, glowering down at him from a portrait behind as detectives flank him on all sides, is inescapable and symbolic. A figurative prison of loveless marriage will soon manifest as a physical one. The Titan frame and prison symbology is dimly echoed as Kansas sits in the courtroom, witnessing the carefully closing frame, camera suffocatingly close as she peers out at the policeman set to send him to his death.
Mr. Henderson, you say you were with this woman for several hours. What did you call her?
I just called her you.
Well, can't you tell us anything about her? Was she a blonde, brunette, tall, short, or what? I don't know. I can't remember. Believe me, Your Honor, I'm telling the truth.
Detective Burgess, played ably by veteran character actor Thomas Gomez, comes surprisingly close to being cast as outright corrupt or incompetent, something which would have been explicitly forbidden by the Hays Code. And while these restrictions would slacken over the coming decade, with films such as Shield for Murder not only depicting but starring crooked cops later to proliferate, here Burgess followed all the appropriate procedure. It was Scott Henderson's complete lack of an alibi that doomed him to death, a theme echoed identically in the novel, but the movie comes refreshingly close to an outright admission that the system itself was at least somewhat culpable in his conviction.
I had to do something.
You could have come to me.
You forget, Inspector. I know Scott's innocent.
So do I.
What do you mean?
I won't say I did my job poorly. The evidence shoved him right into the chair. But since the trial, I've been doing a lot of thinking. The only defense Scott offered was to continually talk about a woman with a funny hat. My kid could have done a better job of describing it. No, only a fool or an innocent man would have stuck to that alibi. A guilty man would have been smarter.
Less comparable to Hitchcock is the mid-movie admission of the killer's true identity. Now, at a glance, this may seem a somewhat quizzical decision for a murder mystery, but a single reading of the pulp novel it was pulled from reveals it to be a wise one. After an incredible book opening, ably depicted in the movie, where Scott and the titular Phantom Lady swap stories at a bar and pledge in unison to never reveal one another's identity, the plot takes a bowling ball to the crank at the halfway point, splitting protagonist duties between Kansas and the character Marlowe is based on. Carol does almost everything depicted in the film, from spying on the barman and getting coked up and sexed up in a jazz joint, while duller refrains of tracking down the Phantom Lady's distinctive hat fall to Marlowe. It's a head-scratcher for a fact, for fully one half of the book to be a boring bit of detective work that culminates in a dead end, and understandable that the movie would outright excise it in favor of making Carol the caper's heroine. But then, a killer climactic twist I won't spoil slaps you right between the eyes, and it's evident what that entire slog was in service to. The problem? It still makes half the story suck, and takes so long to logically elucidate the labyrinthine knotwork of whodunits and doodunits comprising the plot twist that at one point Detective Burgess pauses mid-exposition and unironically inquires, "Am I boring you by rehashing this at length?" The book's ending has a stunning M. Night Shyamalanian twist, but by going without it, the film is superior by far to its forebear, as it instead steers into the mounting danger and dread of Carol hunting down leads, blissfully unaware all the while she's being shadowed by a murderous madman.
It's you, Mr. Marlowe. You startled me. The lights aren't working.
You can see she's never been in a dressing room before.
Looks rather smart.
You know, I've never heard you laugh before.
And then Burgess will find the murderer. I want to hear the court sentence him as they sentenced Scott.
You hate him, don't you?
I hate him.
The madman Marlowe is played by Franchot Tone, who despite not appearing until halfway through, received top billing due to his sheer star power. After an Academy Award-nominated turn in Mutiny on the Bounty, adding the talented Tone to the cast was a coup for Phantom Lady. It also rounds out the Noirchives nicely, as he not only starred in the film that arguably ended Veronica Lake's career, the Nazi thriller Hour Before Dawn, but was one half of a brief, beleaguered marriage to another Noirchives luminary, Gene Wallace, who you'll all know as the co-star of The Big Combo.
I live in a maze, Mr. Diamond. A strange, blind, and backward maze. And all the little twisting paths lead back to Mr. Brown.
I can't buy that, Miss Lowe. Not in a million years.
Why do you want to change my life, Mr. Diamond?
My boss says I'm in love with you.
Tone courts criticism for portraying the killer as merely deranged, but I would argue that closer inspection reveals a surprisingly subtle performance, with a sympathetic streak not at all welcome in the era of the Hays Code.
He's so clever.
Yes, there's genius behind such audacity.
No, only madness.
Madness is a frightening word.
What else can you call it? Go on killing.
Perhaps he hates to kill. Perhaps he feels only horror.
I don't care what he feels.
Landrew, the Bluebeard, Jack the Ripper, our own gangsters, Legs Diamond, Babyface Nelson, Dillinger, paranoiacs, all of them. Well, someday we'll have sense enough to train the mind as we train the body from birth. And they won't need men like me, and that'll be all right, too. What sort of job is this, anyway? Hunting down a madman.
Alan Curtis's character, Scott Henderson, is a fascinating role inversion, as the man being rescued by a woman he's not even aware is in love with him. And while think pieces and stink pieces in academia allege this to be evidence of Cornell Woolrich's proto-feministic inclinations or latent homoeroticism, truth is he used and repeatedly reused this literary device with female characters requiring rescue in multiple Pulp Fiction outings. Curtis provides pathos and sympathy aplenty for his character, and as a rising star with all the prospects in the world, it makes it all the more tragic that following a routine kidney operation in 1951, he'd awaken from anesthesia, sip a cup of tea, and immediately die before his 44th birthday. The entrapment and frustration he projects is at times so powerful, the script's sense of urgency is almost singularly powered by it.
Why don't you admit there wasn't any woman with you last night?
No. If I did that, I'd never be sure of anything again in my life. She sat at the bar with me. She liked a certain tune and played it on a jukebox. We walked down 46th Street together. She was real. She was real. And now you're trying to tell me she never existed.
But every frame of every scene is stolen by the sultry Ella Raines, one of the oft-forgotten faces of film noir who shot to stratospheric stardom after being repeatedly photographed for Yank and Life magazine in 1944, where doubtless many a demoralized GI flew their flags at full staff for the pin-up queen. But her cheesecake image was undercut by her staunch social and political conservatism. She rarely consented to even implied love scenes, admired the films and politics of John Wayne, and in the mid-40s, at the height of her Hollywood stardom, took an extended absence from the silver screen to raise a family with her triple-ace fighter pilot husband, Robert Olds Jr.
Robin is an Air Force major stationed at March Field, and since he's operations officer for Jet Flight Squadron, he doesn't have very much time off. So my mother came with me. She's sitting right over there.
And while Ella Raines distinguished herself in other noir affairs, such as the underrated Impact, her magic and magnetism is on full display in Phantom Lady.
If you're looking for Mr. Henderson, you'll find him just where you put him.
Oh, come on now. That's nonsense, and you know it. My job was done when I turned him over to the DA.
So easy to be smug and wear a badge on your mind, isn't it?
Why don't you go home to Kansas?
I'm staying here. I've things to do.
Like going around frightening barmen? That's what I'm paid for, to know those things. Why didn't you follow him?
Maybe I needed the exercise.
Try Central Park next time. The air's better.
From her stunning ophidian eyes to her raven hair, Ella Raines seems cut from plaster as a pulp noir heroine, and as such, many moviegoers enter into the first viewing under the mistaken impression that the eponymous Phantom Lady is a reference to her, an assumption that ironically is actually accurate in the novel it's adapted from. But between Ella Raines' smoky allure, Franchot Tone's hypnotic performance, and Robert Siodmak at the absolute peak of his pulpy predilections, the title of Phantom Lady is equally descriptive of the character of the film itself. Like a siren in the night, it beckons the viewer to unearth its Sumerian mysteries, every frame shrouded in shadow, a monument to monochrome, and a worthy, too frequently forgotten entry in the Film Noirchives. If 1944 marked the maturation of film noir as a genre, then Phantom Lady was its sexual awakening. Until next time, don't get captured.
But you need someone to help you who really wants to. Someone who just won't be beaten.
Stop blowing bubbles, Kansas.